Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Sarah Ezrin, who's here to share with us her new book, The Yoga of Parenting. 10 yoga-based practices to help you stay grounded, connect with your kids, and be kind to yourself. So have you ever wondered if you can bring the wisdom of yoga into your parenting journey? From the 2023 National Parenting Product Award winner, Sarah Ezrin shares with us just that. So Sarah Ezrin is an author, world-renowned yoga educator, content creator, and mama based in the San Francisco Bay Area. She loves guiding people along their wellness and parenthood journeys. Her words, classes, and social media are supportive, healing spaces where people can feel seen and heard. So let's welcome to the show, Sarah Ezrin.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Oh my goodness, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this. I mean, yoga and parenting, it doesn't even sound like it goes together sometimes. What's the inspiration for this book?
Well, it may not sound like that because we have this misconception that yoga is this very calm and, stretchy, low lights, moving your body and everything is very, Zen, although that's a completely different, different form of meditation. But really, when you look at the root of the word yoga and you look at what the concepts of yoga is and the practice of yoga, we see that parenting is actually the ultimate yoga practice because yoga at its root is all about connection.
Well, that explains it all. I think that it's perfect to look at yoga in a new way. For so long, we've had so many boundaries when it comes to meditation and yoga. So I love the fact that we can move those boundaries out of our way.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think the other thing too is that it gives parents permission because I know personally, I'm not doing the type of rigorous, flow-based, exercise-focused yoga that I was doing in my early 20s. And I'm tempted many days to be like, oh, I didn't get to my yoga practice today. But when we parse it out and when we look at what the practice is really about and what the intentions are, the stilling of the mind, those practices of deeper connection, I realize that I'm actually doing yoga all day long when I'm in relationship and particularly with my children and my partner and, being what's called a householder, right? Where you're the head of a family. I mean, these are practices in of themselves. Now, that being said, I also still need to move my body very much. And I still like rigorous movement, but that pressure that I used to put on myself to, have this yoga practice of what I imagined yoga was, which is, the physical poses, has shifted exponentially. And I hope to give other parents that permission too. So whether you've ever stepped foot on a mat or whether you've come to the mat every day for the last 30 years, we can start to shift our perspective of what we're actually doing and look at the practice as this more relational experience between you and someone or something else.
You start your book off with awareness. Why was that important?
Well, I think to make any changes, and I'm such an A type, like give me a list, I'll get it all done, But in order to know what even goes on the list, you have to sit down and take time to create that inventory. And that has to come from awareness. So if we're moving super fast and we're going from, one fire to another, which is what young parenthood can feel like. I mean, it sure felt that way getting my kids out the door this morning. Then, and then you go right into a to-do list of, here, let's do this and try and elicit change. You're just perpetuating that kind of an energy into what it is that you're trying to change. And instead, we need to take a few moments to get grounded, to get really present, and to become aware, well, okay, what are some things that are working right now? And what are some things that could use some shifting? Where do I need some more support? Where am I actually doing a great job already getting support? And I think both of, all those lenses are really important, but especially the what's going well and the areas that also need improvement so that you are able to hone in on, okay, well, I'm actually doing quite well, right? In some of these areas. And yes, I need a little more support in this other area. But all of that has to come from first getting still and getting quiet and which I know can be impossible, being in a house of two very loud toddlers and a loud dog. But that time is essential. And even if it's just a minute in your day, or 5 minutes hiding in the bathroom, or 10 minutes sitting in your car before pickup, all of that starts to accumulate and it becomes cumulative. And in time, you have these longer blocks of quiet, 15 minutes of laying there before going to sleep. And in those pauses, that's where awareness is born, because that's when the mind is a little bit quieter, or, where you will get insight and ideas and intuition can come in. But if we're just going from one thing to the next, then unfortunately, there isn't really space for any of those realizations or that awareness to develop.
You are so authentic in your book, and I really appreciate this about you. You talk about how for someone that teaches breath awareness for a living, you probably should breathe a little bit more. And I think a lot of us feel that way as we go throughout our day, that we're holding our breath, kind of keeping everything stuck in. And so to even focus on one's breath, I think that's an amazing thing to do.
I mean, I think I live on an exhale too. I think it depends on the person, right? I mean, even just in this, like right there, I was like, oh, right, I haven't inhaled since we started our conversation. Everything I do is kind of this outward energy, right? That's just how I live my life. I'm very kind of forceful and forward, just as I was explaining before with the kind of A-type personality and the to-do list. But then there are some people that are in a gasp state, right? That, are either like you were explaining, kind of frozen and not really taking anything in. I mean, it's really cool to see how our breath and how we're breathing and our breathing patterns is indicative of how we're living our lives. And there's so much research out there. I mean, it's like my favorite part of doing the book was, taking what was millennia of yoga philosophy and ancient texts and then pairing it up with the research, that now it's proven time and time again, your breath can change your life. Having more effective breathing has profound effects on the nervous system and longevity and, mood and all of those different things. And it's this simple tool that we have access to every moment of every day.
I love that, because it is a thing that I look at, because there are many times I go throughout my day and I'm holding my breath. So I have to really watch that as well. And what kind of things can our breath indicate?
But I want to honor you for a second, because you noticed, right? Think about how many people go and of course, you're in the mindfulness space, right? So maybe we have a little bit of an advantage that this is what we love and this is our passion. But I think about the majority of people out there in the world who are going through holding their breath and have absolutely no awareness of that, or perpetually living on an exhale or an inhale. So, I think something important to note too, by the way, with the breath is I do want to add the caveat that the breath is not the through line for absolutely everybody. For people who have had trauma or have, different structural issues with their body, the breath may actually lead to more excitement. And I don't mean excitement like in a positive way, it may more nervous system excitement. So I do just want to honor that, breath is amazing, but it's not everybody's through line. Thankfully, there are other ways. But what yoga teaches us is that the breath is actually a channel to our greater energy system. So breath is just one way to get to our prana. And thankfully, there are many other ways to get to prana too. But, absolutely the awareness of your breathing is that first step, and then slowing down enough to take a couple of deep breaths. One of my first exercises in the book is just to set an alarm every few hours and breathe for a minute, right? And see how that creates an effect in your day. It's pretty remarkable what a single breath can do to change the trajectory of an entire day or lifetime.
I like how in your book you talk about breath breaks.
Mm.
And and I just found that to be so helpful, because it is, again, going throughout our day. I think these type of discussions make us more mindful of how we're being present within our day.
Absolutely. And, the breath breaks are woven throughout the book. But, we can, and just like that exercise, right? Like weave them throughout your day as well. And sometimes, and you said it earlier, like this is what I talk about all day long. I teach people to breathe for a living. I literally in yoga classes, you're cueing people when to inhale and when to exhale. Like that's quite an honor and a privilege. But even, though that's my primary focus for most of the hours of the day, I need to be reminded to breathe often by my kids, by my husband, lovingly by myself. So I think, in addition to scheduling breath breaks and, if scheduling gives you a little bit of anxiety, it makes you hold your breath. Maybe that's not the right word for it. But in addition to trying to be intentional and having a few times throughout the day where you just take a couple breaths, it could also be worth it to ask somebody that you love and respect and who is kind to remind you, when you notice, okay, I think you're holding your breath right now, or let's breathe together. I mean, that's the co-regulation aspect of it that I do with my kids. That is just, it's like life-changing. To have a toddler start to calm their nervous system and breathe with you is a really incredible experience. And even just sometimes simply breathing in a room with another person, as mammals and social creatures, our breath will come into synchronicity.
I love how science is is really kind of verifying all this for us now. I mean, we're such in a great age where this is all coming together, kind of full circle in many ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also like, let's call a spade a spade. It's an extraordinarily stressful time in the world. And we were not meant to be bombarded with information in the way that we are, or to be living, miles and continents away from our extended family. The evolution of technology, compared to the evolution of the human nervous system, those things are not syncing up at the same time. And unfortunately, we're feeling that in our culture. But I think what's amazing, and at least, I don't know how you feel about this, because I've been in the wellness industry now for almost, 25 years. I've been teaching for over 15, is that, I've watched it go from counterculture and woo-woo, I'm making air quotes. If we were on video, you'd see that, to becoming a little bit more mainstream, to becoming much more popular, to suddenly being in every TV show and on every advertisement, but still also always being that thing that like yoga people do, some people do yoga, some people don't. And then I think with the heights of stresses that we all went through during COVID-19 and in 2020 with the shutdowns, I think it really propelled people that were never interested in the mental health or the wellness aspect of things to start to explore that. And it just opened up. And let's not even forget to mention the virtual offerings of everything, right? That suddenly, because so many things went online, there were plethora of resources for people. So I'm hopeful that, there's theories in the ancient yogic texts that, sometimes you go through these periods of great chaos in order to get back to a period of quietude. And, I don't want to say the word enlightenment because that's from the Buddhist perspective, but, you towards inquiry, and people are now more curious, but you almost have to like go through the chaos and the challenge to get to the other side of wanting to slow down and wanting things to be different. So, that's my hope of it all. Here we are, 2023.
Hey, I take that as well too. I'll cheer you on every day of the week for that. We could all use something that helps with our stress, anxiety, depression, you name it. Do your children do yoga with you?
Well, again, not to be like coy, but like, what's yoga, right? Like, I feel like my babies came out the womb doing yoga just by being present. But then if we're talking like the physical poses, my toddler, so I have a 3.5-year-old and a 15-month-old, and he's not a toddler anymore, is he? My preschooler, we just learned yesterday, thanks to Alexa, we asked Alexa, and if he was still a toddler. So no, my preschooler is very into yoga. He has his own mat. He likes to like teach me poses. He talks about it all the time. I'm interested to see what will come with my 15-month-old. In some ways, he's a little bit more like in his body. Like, he'll sit cross-legged, or he'll be just like stretching his leg out to the side. But he's also a little bit more frenetic energetically. So, where my elder toddler, my preschooler, whatever we're going to call him now, 3.5-year-old, actually really values quiet time and solitude. My youngest is a little different. I think that's just second kids, right? They're born into this busy household. But we'll see how it all develops. I have plenty of friends who are yoga teachers that their kids just completely reject it. I have no interest. It's like, this is what mom does. I don't want to do that. And then there's the other side where people get super into it. So TBD, we shall see. But if we're talking about connection and presence and, intention and living with awareness, then they're my teachers. They are advanced yogis and have been since birth.
You even see videos of dogs doing yoga now. So,
oh yeah, my dog is doing yoga right now. He's sleeping.
Sounds like a good pose.
He's in Shavasana right now next to me.
Well, and so that kind of brings up another thing, because parents are so busy. So how do they interweave like any kind of rest time or quiet time? I know you talked about the few minutes here and there, but do they need more time than that?
Oh yeah. There's a phenomenal restorative yoga teacher. Restorative yoga is really designed to access the rest and digest. You often use a lot of props. It's that you create a nest for your body, right? That you're creating these nests so that you feel held and you're able to drop down and access the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the relaxation response and rest and digest. So it's this whole, style of yoga where you appear to be lying around, but really you're doing deep inward, profound work. And a senior teacher who has been teaching the style for a long time and is quite a master, Judith Lassiter, has been quoted as saying that it takes 7 minutes for the nervous system to really settle. And I know 7 minutes, like, it can sound like a lot of time. It can sound like not a lot of time. I guess it depends on what time of day I'm telling you that. 7 minutes in the morning when I'm trying to get everybody out the door, sounds luxurious, but 7 minutes at bedtime when everybody's down and it's just before you go to sleep doesn't really feel like that much time at all. And I obviously these 2-hour practices and 90-minute classes, which is what classes used to be. Now they're much more geared towards shorter spans, but that's probably unrealistic. But if we can even, again, it's cumulative. There was a recent study that was talking about, even just doing little minutes throughout the day, that it does accumulate as the day goes on. So, I don't think there's an easy answer. I think it really is, if you can sneak in 7 minutes and put your legs up a wall, fantastic. If you can do a 5-minute sit, great. If you can only do 1 minute every, few hours, fine, whatever you can do. And let's just be kind to ourselves too, because the last thing we want to do is slather on the guilt of not being able to do the thing that we're supposed to be doing to help us feel better.
Oh, I get that. The yoga guilt, like, am I doing the pose right? Did I fall asleep during the savasana? There's lots of different things. But does this practice really help, like, just people and parents get to this place of calm where they can really operate through that calm?
I think, let's talk nervous system really quick. Again, in the nervous system, there's, different parts of the nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. There's the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system. So what we're talking about with sympathetic is fight or flight, right? It's that response to danger, to chaos, and to stress. The parasympathetic side, that's the rest and digest I talked about. And that's that kind of calm state, right? That chill way of being. We're not meant to be in the calm state 24 hours a day. If we were, it'd be like my dog. Like, I would never get up off the floor. Nothing would ever get done. We actually need the ignition of the sympathetic nervous system. We need it. Dr. Daniel Siegel talks about it as being like an accelerator and a brake, and that you need to be ignited in order to get things done. And then you have a system to come back to calm. So, I want to abolish this idea that we're meant to just be like floating through the world, because that's an impossibility. We need to be responding. And we also, as parents and caretakers of little beings who, our main job is keeping them alive, we do need to have, response times, and to be able to jump to it if there is a threat, right? Or if there is a risk. And threat can be as simple as, my 15-month-old, pulling something out of the socket, right? It doesn't even have, or a car horn going by. But, that being said, I think what yoga can do is that it really extends the periods of calm when we're in them. It teaches us how to put our foot on the brake. So we're not just like slamming on the gas pedal of excitement and heightened nervous system state, not knowing how to slow ourselves down. It gives us the tools to be able to come back to a place of homeostasis and equanimity. And, to then be like, okay, now I want to start amping things up again. I was dancing yesterday in the kitchen with my toddler, and we were getting very energized, and my heart rate was up, and, we were jumping, we were dancing, we were yelling. Like, that's not a calm state, but that's not a negatively excitable state, right? And then he was starting to get a little bit too excited, and like, as I watch him like going towards his brother, it's like, as brothers, these little brothers will do. Then we calmed it down. We turned the music to something slower. We started to do more breathing, and we started to bring it back to the floor and get a little bit more grounded. And I think that's what the yoga offers us, is it offers us the wherewithal to be like, okay, my foot's too far on the gas pedal right now. Got to pull it off a little bit. This is where the break is. And, how can I find that evenness between the two?
Do you feel that also teaches your children how to self-regulate?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, I think that's one of the challenges of modern parenting, right? Is the self-regulation piece of it, because we are learning how to self-regulate while we are also teaching our children emotional regulation. And in previous generations, it was, very much the roles, it was just very different times, but it was a lot more kind of, you do as I say, and, my house, my rules, where these days it's a lot more collaborative. But as a result, instead of just exploding with the task that you're expecting your kid to do, which is called authoritarian parenting, these days we do much more of a connection-based parenting, which requires us to first self-regulate, to then help them regulate their emotions. And it's got to be one of the reasons we're so tired as a generation, because it's much easier. And I feel it. Like, I know, like, even this morning, I'm just like, get dressed, like, it's much easier for me to just explode and tell him to get dressed and, to like lay it down than it is for me to get down on the level of my toddler and be like, what's going on with you this morning? How are you feeling? We've got to get dressed, like, making it a conversation, but also calming myself down while I'm helping him calm down. It's exhausting, but it's so worth it, and that's just the spiritual path. Is we talk about, it's more work in the short term, but it's much more benefits in the long run.
It does sound like an exhausting job. I don't know if I can do it. Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Sarah Ezrin in regards to her new book, The Yoga of Parenting. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
With Breath Hub, you'll experience the transformative power of breath as it harmonizes your body, mind, and spirit. Recommended by experts in fitness, sports, psychology, and medicine. Meet the scientific way of being well. Breath Hub. Breathe better, live better.
Are you a coffee lover who wants to make a difference? Look no further than Fire Department Coffee, a veteran-owned business that gives back to support first responders in need. Each batch of coffee is freshly roasted right here in the USA by a dedicated team of first responders and coffee experts. So when you enjoy a cup of fire department coffee, you're not only drinking high-quality coffee, you're supporting members of your community. Start your day with a coffee that gives back. Visit firedepartmentcoffee.com. That's fire, D-E-P-T, coffee.com.
Are you looking to untangle life's riddles? Discover the profound teachings of Dr. Shai Tabali, renowned philosopher, best-selling author, and your guide to self-empowerment. With methods that harmonize psychological and spiritual principles, Dr. Tabali's wisdom offers a pathway to holistic transformation. Take that first step today and join thousands globally and embrace the journey to higher consciousness. Visit shaitabali.com, that's SHAITUBALI.com now.
Are you chasing profitability yet losing fulfillment? Let me introduce you to your solution, the Relaunch Company. I'm Hillary DeCesar, an entrepreneurial performance coach, fearless leader of the Relaunch Company, here to help put the pedal to the metal and relaunch your business your way. Visit www.therelaunch.com. Take the free quiz to learn 3 steps towards waving goodbye to burnout and hello to success.
The book Terminal Cancer is a Misdiagnosis, authored by Danny Carroll, is on sale at Amazon now. Licensed psychologist and psychotherapist Tessa Antiojon-Guerra commented, "This is one of the most empowering books on the topic of cancer you will ever read." Award-winning author T.L. Needham commented, "This recommended book can be understood by anyone seeking answers, hope, and alternatives to a terminal diagnosis. Buy it now on Amazon.com.
Pandemonium. Fast forward 20 years. A U.S. president seizes control of all U.S. missiles, the power grid, the banking system, and every computer in America as he hides in an underground bunker. Pandemonium, a captivating sci-fi thriller where a hidden war, psychics, aliens, artificial intelligence, and transcendental love collide with the latest media technology. Pandemonium, live to all devices. Get your copy on paperback or digital. Free sample at getpsychic.org.
Hello, Dr. Cutler here. Do you experience bloating, heartburn, food craving, bowel irregularity, food sensitivities, weight issues? If you do not digest your food, you may be deficient in macronutrients, which your body needs for optimal health. DrEllenCutler.com teaches that this is an enzyme deficiency. I believe the most important supplement is a full-spectrum digestive enzyme, Dr. Ellen's Way Digestive Enzymes. Hear more about it at DrEllenCutler.com.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with our special guest, Sarah Ezrin, who's sharing her new book with us, The Yoga of Parenting. 10 yoga-based practices to help you stay grounded, connect with your kids, and be kind to yourself. So your book is broken up into 3 sections: awareness, transformation, and connection. So when we talk about transformation, how does that fit into all of this?
Well, the transformation of it is such an interesting piece. And I go back and forth on it. And I even admit to that in the book. You know, I'm very, very transparent, just as a human being, but even in the book about like, what is transformation? Because there's this idea of transformation as being something that changes you into something else, right? You transform into something. But in a lot of the yogic lineages, and specifically the Tantra lineage, transformation can be a bad word. And what change is in yoga is actually a returning to your truth. It's the removal of all these outside identities and roles and misunderstandings and societal expectations to get to the heart core of who you truly are. So I go back and forth. I'm like, are we really transforming? I mean, I think that we create change and we can absolutely do better and we can grow. But I think of it more as that kind of return to the truth of who we are, which is this place of connection and love, than about it becoming becoming the best parent ever, right? Like that's impossible. I mean, first of all, you already are, because you were given your children and your children were given you. So, right there, the universe has already told you you're the best fit for each other. But, if we can come back to that place of connection and love, I mean, that's the ultimate goal of any of it, of life, right? It's the ultimate goal of our parenting. It's the ultimate goal of our partnerships. It's the ultimate goal of career. It's the ultimate goal of being here on this earth as human beings.
I can see so many gifts that come with being able to go through these changes, and it really is a perspective shift.
Oh yeah. And I mean, it's funny too, because there's so much forgetting and remembering that is, I mean, it's definitely the spiritual path, but, human existence. And I don't even want to say spiritual path, because I know that, I mean, your listeners are probably like all for it, but like, I think spiritual may not even be the right word. I think it's just the self-seekers, right? The inquirers and people that are interested in personal development. There's so much forgetting and remembering. And it's like I'm doing again lessons that I was working on when I was 27, and that should have been working on when I was a teenager, and I'm sure I'll be working on them again, in my mid 50s. And that's just kind of evolution in general. And you can learn a lot and then you can forget it and then you get to learn it again. And it's kind of cool because, people call it like the school of life, right? And, it's just every lesson is its own experience. And sometimes you have to redo that lesson many times.
I agree with you. And it's kind of looking at things in a new perspective. You may get it one time. It's like, okay, now we're going to, broaden our gaze just a little bit more in regards to this topic or this issue, whatever has come up. And I like how you look at it more as an opportunity as opposed to, I mean, a lot of times people think, oh gosh, life is happening to me.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely that. And then there's this new, kind of pseudo spiritual, like, well, life is happening for you. I do want to be careful sometimes when we can shift into those things. Like, life, the idea of life happening to you, I think we have much more accountability. We are co-creating our life. Like, there is a set plan, but you are also in there creating change. This is one of the principles of why yoga is such a profound practice, and what the yogis were trying to do, which was change our karma. That we were able to make decisions that could change the destiny of our lives, right? We're not just like an amoeba that has one path to go on. We are co-creating and we are making decisions. And that's the beauty of being a human, is that you have that wherewithal. But at the same time, when there are very challenging things, I just want to always honor that, you allow yourself to be in it. Not everything happens for, maybe it will happen for a reason that you'll know in 20 years from now. But when you're in it right now, like my mom, died of cancer, and like, getting her diagnosis, I didn't want to jump to, well, what's the gift for me? Right? Like I had to really go through the being in it, going through all the treatments with her, the years of suffering and spreading and all the other diagnoses, and then her death, and then the mourning of that. And now maybe, nearly 15 years later, now I can tell you that there are gifts that came out of that. But it's just such a process, right? It's such a process, the whole being a human in this world.
It is. I understand. I'm so sorry for your loss. It's that path that we have to walk, and the grief. It takes time.
Yeah. And, and again, right. Is it really, am I really being transformed by my grief? Or maybe I'm transforming my grief. I don't know. I mean, I go back and forth on it. All I know is that we have agency as human beings, and that's a profound gift. And whether there's an instant of a reaction that's, nervous system based, like you yell at your kids, bring it back to parenting real quick, or snap at your partner, or you have a fear response, you always have the choice on what to do next. And that's how you can start to reroute the trajectory of where things are going in your life. And that's how, yes, there are circumstances and there are many things that are out of your control, but you can always choose your next thought and your next behavior.
How do boundaries play a role in all of this?
Oh my, boundaries is my favorite topic because it's the hardest one for me. Boundaries play many different roles. First of all, I want to define boundary, right? Because I think at least when I was growing up and I would hear that person has no boundaries, I would assume it just meant they were an oversharer. And, as I'm glad that now in this, more wellness aware world, people are understanding that boundaries are really about limits that you're setting for yourself. I like to think of it as knowing where I end and something else begins. Boundaries are essential even with your children. And I know that can be really hard for some parents to hear because there are some people that are very much into attachment parenting and, they believe that their children are a part of them and, everything that I don't want to project onto that, but we are as connected as we are in this world, and we are all connected, right? We are all one being. We are also individuals, and it's really important as a parent to honor your individual needs so that you are a whole person giving to your child. You actually are able to give even more when you're not relying on them to be filling your tank. If you go out and fill your tank with doing something that you love and then come back and have more quality time with your kids, that's going to be way more beneficial than ignoring all of your needs and desires and, putting everything into them, which is just not fair. So I think boundaries is really about energy management ultimately, and really about protecting the core of you. So you're a whole person. You have that much more to give.
So wisely said. In your book, you talk about how the practice of parenting is a practice of letting go. What do you mean by that?
Well, that kind of feeds into what I was just saying before. And again, maybe I have a very different view of it, having had some very significant deaths happen at a young age. I lost my brother, I lost my mom, my aunt, and then we had a lot of the great uncles and aunts and grandparents all go around the same time. So my awareness of mortality is a little bit heightened, and I know, and again, this is one of the things that the yogic texts teach us, is in human form, in corporeal form, everything is change and everything is mortal. Everything is temporary. In our soul form, there's a part of us that is never ending and deeply connected and always tuned into one another. But we're living on this earth as human beings, and human beings get sick, human beings get ill, human beings have accidents, and human beings ultimately have to go. And that letting go can be leaving your house to go and form their own life. It could be as, more recently is like your kid leaving to go to summer camp, or it could be a family member passing away. But understanding that everything is ephemeral and that our children are not ours, right? It is all a practice of letting go for the bigger letting go that will ultimately happen, which is them, either leaving your house or heaven forbid. And living with that at the forefront of your mind, not in a morbid sense, but in an appreciative and in a privileged sense, that every moment is so important and that this is a privilege that we get to be together. It's not just a given, right? That we're in one another's lives. It is a privilege, and it should be treated with reverence. And at the same time, not grasping onto our kids and trying to keep them with us or mold them into who we think they are. That we really, it's like they're in our nest for so long, and then we have to let them fly in whatever form that may be. And it's a privilege to be the parent in that role.
I think that this discussion has changed my life. I just want you to know that looking at things this way, it really changes how we can look at life, completely.
I mean, I appreciate that. I was like, oh gosh, did I go too far?
No.
I'm like, it's too morbid, Sarah, dial it back. But it shouldn't be morbid. I mean, that's the part of it, right? Is like life and death. The cycle of life and death is a part of everyday life. And, when we look to cultures that celebrate death, or, cultures where death is happening in the forefront, like Hindu culture, right, in India, and, or, Dia de los Muertos in Mexico, the death is celebrated. It's seen as a transition into something else. And whether it's because you believe there's multiple lives afterwards, or whether that person is freed from their suffering, the beliefs, are different. But death is celebrated, and it's understood as being a part of our life. In the West, we're really afraid of it. It's hidden in funeral homes and out of the public eye. People don't talk about it. If someone dies in your life, I mean, I was like a leper, after my mom died. People were like afraid they were going to catch their parent passing away, right? It seemed like they were so terrified of it. And I wish that it was a conversation that we were having more often. And it, just to understand that, I see it happening every winter on my tree. And in the plants outside, and I see it in the bugs and the animals, and my toddler is actually just starting to be a little bit fascinated by death right now. They're not toddler. I have to differentiate them now. My 3.5-year-old, my preschooler, and we saw a dead bird, and he's like, "What's wrong with that bird?" And I said, "It's dead." And then he was like, "It's dead." I'm like, "Yeah, it's dead." And it was just this really simple understanding conversation. I'm like, animals die. This is the cycle of life and death. I'm like, what was I going to say to him? I don't know. I feel like having that at the forefront of your brain. Now, that being said, this is not also like a pass to then, be like, I must seize every moment and I can never take time for myself. And I must never, miss a game of my kids. No, let's not take it that way either. Right. It comes back to the boundaries and taking care of yourself, but it just gives you a different appreciation. Waking up every day is a blessing. Having your kids every day is a blessing. And, let's just remember that it's all finite.
So well said. So well said. In your book, on each chapter, you have a section that's called From Mat to Family. Why do you have those?
Well, I wanted to take all of the information that everyone has, just digested in the chapter, which is, it's a wide array. I call it multisensorial learning because, I talk about a concept through the yogic lens, and I talk about it through modern science and brain research. And then I do an interview with a different parent. So there's many ways to absorb it into your body. But the best way that we're going to be able to absorb those practices is to do them ourselves. So From Mat to Family are these very simple asks, in you explain that the book is broken into 3 parts. So in the very beginning, where it's more like these observational practices, just learning, reporting, where we actually start to implement more actual tangible practices later on in the book. But they're just ways for us to take what we've just learned and what we know to be true in our wisest of selves, because this is all stuff we already know innately, and apply it literally to the meltdown in the grocery store, or the teenager slamming the door, or.
Well, then this is a good segue. So how do we get to this place of living in harmony? What do we look for?
Well, the living in harmony chapter is important to mention nature, right? And it's a chapter. It's just a very surface level view of the practice of Ayurveda, which is all about changing, not even changing yourself. That's not the right word. It's all about harmonizing with nature and what's going on around you. So what do I mean by that? It means looking at the foods that you're eating and making sure that they are appropriate to the season that you're in. So it's summer right now. If it were a hot day, it probably wouldn't make much sense to have soup. It wouldn't make much sense to go to a Soul Cycle spin class, even though I'm obsessed with them. And, they're so much fun, because that will be over agitating for me. There's also the idea of, times of day, seasons, and, learning to live with nature as our guide. But as you get more used to nature being the guide, you start to see that all those pieces and elements are in your family members too. So, if you have someone that's a little more heated, it's kind of like the soup, right? Like, you don't want to throw a heated discussion at somebody that tends to run hot naturally. That's probably somebody that you need to come at with a little bit more of a cooling approach. So it's really about, how am I harmonizing with the world around me? Well, I'm learning what are the patterns, what are the different elements that are in front of me. You learn so much from, just looking outside. I'm looking outside my house right now and thinking, of as I'm watching the grasses turn yellow, it's summer here. And then using those approaches with your children as well. If you have somebody that's, quite soft, it's like you would need to create more structure, right? It's like almost like holding water. Water is just a puddle on the floor, but if you put it in a vessel, if you put it in a cup, then it's contained, or you squirt it out of a hose, right? It's powerful. So if you have a child that's quite soft, they probably may need more of that kind of boundary setting, or, having you create the structure for them to find their power.
And hence you're taking yoga into your everyday life.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's a practice, right? To and I am by no means, an expert in applying these. These are the suggestions that I need every day, right? I forget all the time, like, oh wait, no, don't go to my husband with this tone, and oh no, this toddler is going to need this, and but you keep recalibrating, and you keep coming back, and you learn, and I think also, when I do come in hot to my toddler that doesn't like being told what to do, it's an opportunity for me to also be like, you know what, I'm sorry, I came in a little too quickly. What's a different way I could approach that? Or not even giving him, because that can be overwhelming for a kid to ask them when they're that young. But, you can say, next time I will give you more options. So they're learning too, you are then reflecting to them. One of the things I talk about in the book a lot, and that you'll hear a lot in different yoga classes and yoga lineages, is the metaphor of the lake, the still lake, and that we work on ourselves to be like a still lake, like our mind and our energy, so that we can allow the rest of the world to see themselves clearly, right? A still lake is like a mirror. And if we are able to get grounded and settled, then whoever, we were just talking to, if there was a heightened state or some sort of excitement, they can see their behaviors. You can reflect on what maybe you did, and everybody gets to learn in that moment.
As opposed to being in rapids.
Exactly.
That I'm sure many people can relate to that. I'm feeling like a lake today, and in a couple hours, I'm rapids.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Is there a breathing, just a practice you can take us through so our listeners can follow with you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we should, this is like on the spot. So I'm like, which one? I have so many. It's always like whenever people ask me to pick one, I feel like I'm like picking a favorite child, like I can't do that. But I think the one that we should do is I think we should just ground for 1 minute and breathe, because I think that was a hot topic for us in the beginning. And I want to show people how long a minute can be. And also, just how profound the effects can be. So wherever you are, and I assume many of you will be in transit, driving or walking. So you don't even need to stop, but just wherever you are, notice where your body is in space. And notice the parts of you that you would consider your roots. So if you're sitting on the floor, it would be your buttock bones. If you're driving, maybe the feet on the pedals. You could be lying down where it's the back of the body. And you're just noticing right now that there is a part of you that can act as an anchor, even if you are in motion. And then do a brief scan from the head all the way to the toes. And just notice different parts that feel stirred up or dull or pretty even, tingly, spacious, stiff. And not needing to change any of those things. We're just becoming aware right now. Remember, awareness is the first step. And then where's your breath? Are you breathing into your chest or your belly, your ribs, or is it totally in the collarbones? And I'm going to set a timer for 1 minute. We're going to breathe as deeply as you can. Inhaling from the belly, ribs, chest, light pause. Emptying fully, exhale. It'll almost feel like the ground is moving up towards the ceiling through your body. And do that again. You don't have to be in my cadence. Full inhale. Breathing from the base to the top, belly, ribs, chest. Exhale fully. And then just continue on your own. There is no right or wrong. Our minute is ended. So wherever you are with your breath, start to work your way towards a final exhale. And then just let the breath come back to that autonomic pacing where you're not really overthinking it, but maybe it's a little deeper. And do a scan again. What has shifted? And now imagine doing that for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or even just simply scheduling another time today to do that 1 minute for yourself.
How empowering is that? For me, it felt like I can see why maybe you're using this technique and will help your kids to relax, because I was totally relaxed.
Oh, good. I'm like taking you through it and I'm like, oh man, I've got a lot of anxiety, which is my baseline. My shoulders are in my ears, like earrings, my eyebrows. But when you start to do the scan and you become aware, I mean, and that's, I think, the first step, right? Again, when we talked about awareness, is to not try to change anything. In awareness, you're just observing and without judgment. It's a spacious observation. Sylvia Bornstein, who is a phenomenal meditation teacher up here at Spirit Rock, she talks about spacious observation. We're just seeing, we're just witnessing. Then we can start to make some changes if we need, right? Or the changes will just happen automatically just by simply breathing for a minute.
Well, Sarah, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your book, The Yoga of Parenting?
Yeah, so you can connect with me kind of everywhere. I'm pretty active on Instagram, Sarah Ezrin Yoga. I also have a TikTok account, Sarah Ezrin, but my website is a good place to check in to see, because we're doing a book tour and we're adding dates all the time and cities, and I love to see people in real life. So that's a nice place to connect live. And yeah, please send me a note and any questions that you have, or just saying hello. It's just the best part of this journey is all of the friendships that I've been forming and all of the community building that I've been able to participate in. So I thank all of you who are listening, and for people who have purchased the book, because you're letting me live my absolute dream. So it's just such an honor.
Well, Sarah, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you. Thanks, Marianne.
Well, thank you, Sarah. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, The Yoga of Parenting. 10 yoga-based practices to help you stay grounded, connect with your kids, and be kind to yourself. The Yoga of Parenting is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And remember, support our indie bookstores. If you don't see it on the shelf, ask for them to order it. Again, if you'd like to connect with Sarah, you can at Sarah Ezrin. That's Sarah, SarahEzrin, yoga.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. Monday, Thursday, and Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.